I think it's really important to recognize the importance of what has just taken place here in Taiwan. This meeting, the reporting on ICCPR and ICESCR, has never been done this way before in the world. It's the first time. And that sets a precedent for how a national level review of human rights could be done. There were a lot of problems with the process, but the fact that it happened, the fact that 10 renowned international experts were invited to Taiwan to review independently the human rights system in Taiwan, the fact that 80, 100 government officials were there every day and had to answer questions that were sometimes very difficult, the fact that NGOs were given a lot of time, a lot of opportunity to directly speak to the committee members. All of these things are very, very positive and set a precedent for how these things could be done elsewhere in the world, not just in Taiwan. I won't take a lot of time, but there are a few specifics that I would like to discuss. Maybe I'll start with refugee rights, given that I'm a refugee law practitioner. This is an area that concerns me a lot. There are more refugees in Asia than there are in any other place in the world. Huge numbers of refugees. And yet so few countries in this region have any law or any systems or any processes for protecting them. We were very happy to see that specific comments were made by the committee. Questions were put to the government. And actually, there is a draft refugee law in Taiwan that's being considered. And the NGOs here put together very detailed comments on that law and submitted it to the committee members, who actually held up the NGO comments and said, we see that NGOs have made very detailed comments. We hope the government will take all of these into account. Recommendations were in the concluding observations with regard to refugee law, so we were happy to see that. Of course, it played a very small part in the recommendations. We hoped, actually, to see maybe a little bit more reference to the Tibetan and mainland Chinese populations and the fact that those populations are excluded from the draft refugee law currently in Taiwan. Some other issues that we were happy to see included, they discussed immigration detention and that people who are being detained should have a right to habeas corpus, should have the ability to challenge their detention. And although we didn't see it in the concluding observations, there was comment made by the committee, questions made about children who are in detention in Taiwan because they want to be kept with their parents and their parents are detained, so they keep them together. This is a problem, and this is something that wasn't referred to in the observations but was brought out by the committee during the meeting. We were also happy to see reference to statelessness and the fact that some people who are beginning the naturalization process are forced to give up their former citizenship first to even begin the process, which could result, assuming the process isn't successful, in statelessness in the end. One of the most important messages and outcomes of this process, as has been mentioned by my colleagues, is the fact that the ICCPR and the ICESCR are the law in Taiwan. They have been adopted by Taiwan as the law. Therefore, they're already binding. Other laws need to be revised to be consistent with the ICCPR and ICESCR, but we don't need to wait until they are, because ICCPR and ICESCR are already the law. And so what I would like to encourage to the lawyers of Taiwan and to the NGOs of Taiwan is that you bring cases to court and that you start arguing them under these covenants, because this is the law. And we hope that the courts will recognize that and will enforce the provisions of these covenants in practice in Taiwan. There was sincere concern about the government plan for follow-up. Is there a government plan for follow-up? And civil society has called for a national human rights action plan. I think this is something that's very important and needs to be followed up on. I think that the government should be asked to respond to the concluding observations made by the experts, and that there should be a time frame for implementation of whatever they're going to implement following this process, so that we don't just end with 1 week of a nice meeting, but that there's an outcome, that there's impact from this meeting. And so we hope to see a process laid out moving forward and continuing dialogue on these issues. The fact is that human rights are hard, they're complicated, and if we are going to successfully protect human rights, we're going to successfully provide rights to all of the people within our borders, then everyone has to do their part. It's not just the government's job. And the government also needs to realize that they can't do it alone. It's very important that all parts of society work together. So we really hope that one thing that can come out of this also is a renewed emphasis on collaboration between all of these parts of society. Finally, I just want to say a word of congratulations to the civil society here in Taiwan. I think they did an excellent, incredible job of introducing key issues to the committee. You can see it in the concluding statements. Their words are there in the final recommendations of the committee.